Welcome to ProTalks by Elevate. I'm Anne Benjamin, and on today's podcast, we have Anjali Uthup, who is an RJ with Radio Mango. So, Anjali, welcome to ProTalks.
Thank you so much, Anne. This just feels like absolutely surreal because normally the job you're doing is what I do.
I do.
So, in case Anne's not available next time, please remember to call me.
Oh, that's great. So, before we start, I must tell you this that my mom is a great fan of your mom. I wouldn't
you.
want to start this any other way.
Thank you so much. And if my mother's watching this, she's going to make the question sound like an Anne, only your mother's a fan of mine, not me, not you. Yeah, so, which is something she'll always say. So, yes, thank you so much.
But this is about you. So, growing up as the legendary Usha Uthup's daughter, how much has she influenced you into this media field?
Well, actually, you know what? I have to tell you, this is a story when I was about 10 years old and Sunny, my brother, and me were coming back from school. And in Calcutta, there's this place called Kamak Street. And there's a billboard over there. And normally there used to be pictures of the very great dead people like Rabindranath Tagore or Mahatma Gandhi or, Aurobindo Ghosh, things like that. And one day we're coming back from school and we see a picture of our Amma on that board. And Sunny and I looked at each other and Sunny's asking, did Amma die? And I'm like, yo, Sunny, did Amma die? We went in the morning, but she was fine. Then we looked closer and it was written, Amma sings for La Martiniere. That's our school. So we both went back home and asked Amma, why do you sing? So till we were about 10 or 11, we were really not aware that our mother was such a mega star because it was just that simple. She would take us to do marketing every Sunday on, we'd go to Newmarket, there would be a list ready. We had to take our own patrams to the kitchen, wash it. She used to make beds. The first thing in the morning that she did was making the bed, having a bath. So it was a very, very normal household.
And she got up grounded.
Yeah, and she took a lot of pride, everyone's fighting for priority and right and miss and why should you change your name and all of that. But my mother truly was proud to be Mrs. Jani Uthup. She never fought for an identity. And when I asked her, I said, Amma, you get rebellious in your 20s and all of that. And I said, don't you think, why do you need to be like this and why can't you? She said, sweetheart, if it's Shakti, you don't need to fight for it, no? You don't fight for power. Either you have it or you don't.
Wow. Okay. That's very strong.
Very strong. So that was the way I was brought up.
Okay. And you've carved yourself into the niche of an RJ. Was it did it just happen like that or?
Yes, everything in my life has just happened like that. I just happened to be Usha Uthup's daughter. I just happened to be getting married. I just happened. So this also happened at 20. We are in 2024. So it's exactly, I think 30 years ago, 1994, I had just come back from Australia and I was in St. Xavier's College and it's a day college and normally the morning batches can work. And my amma said, Anjali, would you be interested in going and becoming a radio jockey because Times FM is opening and you'll need to go to Akashvani Bhavan, and it was not like how radio is today. So I'm like, yeah, okay. So amma said, okay, then we are going, take some CDs with you. So I went and I think Jimmy Tangri and somebody else, Chandni Sehgal, whoever was sitting in Times FM, Stito Di, all of them. And they said, okay, so Anjali, you're on tomorrow. I said, where? Wow. She said, no, you have to come and you have to do a show. So Times FM those days had 28 hours a week, out of which I did 19. So it was quite a high at 22 to be, recognized by your voice and having things coming out in the papers. But it was really crazy because it's not like how it is today. Like when I'm working with Radio Mango, when I walked into Radio Mango, people thought I was a fossil. I've been with them for 17 years. But after working at Times FM, you walked in and it was, it belonged to Akashvani Bhavan. And we bought slots from them. So everyone had the same stationality. So it was 107.5. And that's the way it worked. And you just had to go in there and there was a spool on which the ads would come out. And then there was a record player, a CD player and a cassette player. And you had those Ahuja mics that you had to press and talk to. And suddenly in the middle of the song, involuntarily the CD tray would open and then you have to talk. Or after the ad has been rewound, it just goes off the spool. So in between the songs, you're trying to put all of that together. And then walked into Radio Mango. And I walked into the studio and I said, where are the CDs? And they're like, there are no CDs. I said, then how are we recording? I said, well, it's all in the system. So I had to learn the system. And anything to do with numbers or coding or just knowing that a computer is coded at the back 001010, that was enough for me not to like a computer. So I literally had to start from scratch. And 16 years ago, I was also younger, maybe like 34, 35, but I was working with people who were in their 20s and 22. I'm still working with people who are 20 and 22. So, yeah, that's the joke, that I'm going to be with a stick and saying, welcome to Radio Mango on the Kochi Twist. But yes, it happened to me, to tell you honestly.
Okay, so at any point did you feel a pressure?
No,
No?
no, never.
That people are expecting because of, coming
No.
from.
So, well, there was no pressure. Like everybody says, no, like in Kottayam, if you're born over there in Kottayam, you have, everybody knows how to make a super mean vechada. They know how to do a nalla, puttu. They know all those things. It's just natural. So, I may not be the world's best singer, but if somebody asks me to sing, it just naturally comes to us because my mother's side of the family, everybody sings. So I used to grow, when I used to go for holidays to Bombay, I would get up early in the morning and my tata and mamama would have their bath and my grandfather would be doing the Gayatri Mantra and my grandmother would be playing the Veena and then they would be playing Scrabble and then all of us had to go have baths and pray and everything. So music was just part of our lives and in our blood and maybe in my genes.
I was just thinking if there was something called they expecting something out of you being Usha Uthup's daughter.
No, there are no expectations because my appa and amma never brought us up like that.
Okay.
The only expectation is, like my mother told me, she had one scandal and she married it. And she said, that's the only thing I expect. And she said, I don't even expect, I order you.
Okay.
So I never wore sleeveless. And when I was young, and I still don't wear sleeveless, I was brought up to sleep on my side with a sheet no matter how hot it is.
Okay.
And we were never allowed to put our feet on the table if somebody was there. No using bad language. And everybody who's watching this and knows me now, my sentences are punctuated with probably bad words because maybe I was told not to use it and I am a rebel in one way. But yeah, there was no pressure. Only pressure was to live a good life.
Okay.
That's it.
So how do you balance radio and music are two creative,
Yeah.
forms of art. How are you balancing both of them?
Actually, there's nothing to balance because it's one and the other, both are the same. I wouldn't exist if there was no music, na? What will I go and talk? Nobody's going to listen to me. They're not seeing me. I'm not that a prettier face either that they're going to be glued to a television if I talk. So music being part of my life and probably so ingrained in me, there can't be, for me, there's no me without music. And radio is the best platform because you're just talking to somebody. Like some people, when I'm recording or when I'm live, they come into my studio and they say, who are you looking at? Because I just look into a blank space and I imagine I'm talking to somebody, but the person is faceless, sexless, whatever. So it's a great balance. It's like saying, how can you make mean curry without kodampuli? It's just like that.
So about the show, me being one of the listeners, I just love listening to you.
Thank you so much.
And who curates the entire show?
Me.
Yeah, the
And
music, everything.
Everything. And I have a producer, Adarsh, who's now my producer, but I used to have Parvati, Arun, another Parvati, Aarti. These were all my producers, Vaishnavi for a bit. So they all would give me the input. And the greatest thing about the fun that we would have being producer and RJ was that we would be creating some kind of reels or making lunch dates or doing things like that. But literally, the music that goes on to my show and what I say on my show is definitely what I think of. And I have to say thank you to Radio Mango because they give me such a free hand that they say, yes, you can do what you want to. And I just love it.
Okay.
And Adarsh, of course, puts in the little bit of the editing part. He'll, add some twists to it. Add a twist to the Kochi twist, literally. Yeah.
Okay. So that's what. Okay. And also you mentioned that you just talk, it's like talking to a blank space.
Yes.
Any other ways that you connect with your audience, with the listeners?
So the thing is that I know some of my listeners. So it's really nice because I know them now because of Instagram and WhatsApp. People are messaging you and you get to know them. So when you're thinking of, say, I'm suddenly thinking of a book to read. I know my listener would be somebody like Divya or Tracy, and they will always be posting on Instagram about a book.
Okay.
And then if I will be talking about fitness, there are so many people in Kochi city now, like, whether it is Pilates and then it's, the lovely lady Kajal or whether it's Sudakshana or whether it's Bree. I start thinking of these people.
Okay.
So I know my audience by face, by name and by feel.
Okay.
So I do know that it's every point in my life when I'm talking on radio, I know that I'm touching those however many people that are there.
Okay.
So yeah, it's very, I don't know, it just comes to me naturally. I do believe that I am hugging people
So it's
across
a lot about
airwaves.
the people around you.
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah.
And with the rise of a lot of platforms, digital platforms, how has radio changed over time?
So, actually, the greatest thing about radio is that it is so old world and nostalgic.
Okay.
The greatest thing about radio, it's reinvented itself, where it used to be only available if you had a radio, as in where you tuned yourself in. It has changed, and you can have online radio, you have online platforms. Radio Mango right now is not online on an app. It used to be when we were in Dubai. But the support that comes from social media and the engagement that we have, so radio has decided, or rather has evolved, to say, yes, you can only hear us, but on Instagram or Snapchat or Facebook or whatever, LinkedIn, wherever you want to be, there is an activity that is all pervasive.
Okay.
So it gets the people, it gets the music, it gets the radio station and the RJ all together. So it's one big family, it just works. And the greatest thing I think about radio, and it has evolved, but it's just reminds me, of that song. It reminds you of those days when you're just sitting and listening to the radio. It's a Carpenter song, and it's just so, some things are good that they don't change.
Nostalgia.
It's like it gives me goosebumps even talking about radio. Because the minute I put my finger into that place and it says you are authorized, and then you start going on air, and on Saturday night, sometimes after a certain time, if I have already said a link and then I leave, and I'm driving through or going to get my chaya from downstairs from Babu Cheta's Kada or Rajan Cheta's Kada, and I'm like, oh my God, this music is what I'm playing on. It's my show. And 16 years down the line of being on air and 30 years of being a radio jockey, I still get butterflies in my stomach on Saturday nights.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's like
listening to you is giving me
yeah,
goosebumps.
so it gives me a thrill. And like if I'm doing my show, I get nervous before doing my show. And one day I told my mother, how can it be that I got nervous? And she said, thank God you are. The day you tell me you're not nervous before a show means you've lost your art.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah. So I am really nervous before I get onto any show. Once I'm on it, I just feel that this is my life.
Okay.
And once I finish with the show and I see the product, I get butterflies. It feels like that first time of the first love, no? Or that most amazing love in your life, and you see the person across the room and you get that. It's like that for me. Still.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's nice. So apart from this RJ, what you're doing, I also read that you are actively involved with kidney patients, and you take.
Yes. So actually, because of my family members, and one of my best friends who died of cancer, I involved myself with helping cancer patients.
Okay.
And I remember curating during the first Biennale, Bose had called me and said, could you curate the cancer pediatric ward art?
Okay.
So I said, I'd love to do it.
Wow,
So it was a small little thing that happened in the Cochin Club just during the Biennale in 2012 December. And I met up with these fabulous ladies from cancer, and one of them was Suja. And Suja passed on about 2 years ago. But that was my first tryst with helping people with disease. I mean, I've been a caregiver all my life, looking after everybody, and I love doing it. And then when my brother got a kidney disease, I realized that I learned so much from that. And I think knowledge is not worth anything if it's not shared. So I just started volunteering and going and sitting in different hospitals, different dialysis rooms, and finding out about what this is all about. Then I realized that the disease is the disease, and it doesn't come to you and say, oh my God, you're Usha Uthup's son, so I can't come. It comes knocking on everybody's door. But I think the power to cope when you have finances and families who are, your
It's
core
different.
group, it's much easier to cope with it. Not that it's easy to deal with the disease, but it's easier to cope with the technicalities of the disease. And I found that with the people who are really below poverty line, it makes so much of difference to their lives, because if they can afford the 200 rupee dialysis and they need an erythropoietin injection, which is to pump up your hemoglobin, that injection sometimes is about 600 rupees.
Okay.
So what do? If they get it free, they go and sell the injection so that they can get 3 dialysis free. They don't have anybody who's telling them what their in these huge government hospitals, and full respect to the doctors and everybody who runs these hospitals, but it gets to a point where they don't have the time to tell somebody that, like one of the patients was itching crazily and they were like, we don't know what to do. We've didi, humne butter lagaya, cream lagaya, and even in Cochin, there's a yenda chedale, I chori maaranilla, ingane mandiya pattum, and all of that. And I just happened to look at their reports and realize their phosphorus was high. So when their phosphorus is high, you're going to get itching.
Okay.
So you have to do a dialysis which will be in a way that you can remove the phosphorus. So my whole thing is just to help people and be a caregiver to people so that they can understand it better and cope with it better. So yeah, and then I do beg and borrow and ask people to help me with money to help my patients and their
Do
families.
you have a community helping you with this, or just
So
you?
actually, I'm a founder member of a couple of kidney foundations. The first one probably would be Kidney Warriors.
Okay.
It's one of the largest groups in India. I started out a foundation of my own, Sunny Kidney Foundation, but then I realized I don't want to register it.
Okay.
And everybody would say, why? Because then I don't want it to become yet another thing and yet another place where I'm going to be, having events and spending money. So I remember in Bombay, I had met this man called Mr. Khan. He's no more. He was a kidney patient and he didn't know at that time that I was Amma's daughter. So we were sitting, I think, at the Wadia hospital and he's telling me, he said, yaar, pata nahi, ye log kya karte, So I said, why, what happened? He said, Amir Khan aa gaya, Usha Uthup aa gaya. Everyone said I'm a donor. On my table, there were 6 plates, 6 glasses, 6 spoons, 6 forks, 3 days. It was crazy the way it went on. They must have spent about 1.5 crore for the event. Okay. After 3 days, everybody went and my disease the same. So he told me, if you can, in your lifetime, change one person's life forever, that is really worth it. That's when I dropped the idea of doing it as an NGO. I rather do it from person to person. So it's like if you need 10,000 rupees, I'm going to try and get you 10,000 rupees. Okay. I'm not going to take 10,000 rupees and show people that I've helped 10,000 people by just giving them one rupee of no value.
True.
So yeah.
And also with menopause. You do
Oh my God. Oh, this word. So actually I've gone through 2 phases of menopause. I'm not yet menopaused or whatever. That's TMI. But anyway, I'm just saying. But it starts like as a perimenopausal issue. Okay. And then it goes through menopause and you don't really know because nobody talks about it, and especially the kind of family that I come from, the Tambram bit, and then, women don't talk about certain things, women don't wear certain things, women, you don't. So that's one thing that in my belief and in my life, I think is very, very important to say, hey, I've got my periods. Hey, I've got my chum. Don't piss me off. I'm PMSing. Okay. So growing up in Radio Mango, it's been so good because I work with kids who are actually my kids' age.
Okay.
And the joke was that, Amichi, all day amma tatti poipam adutha ningal irikkum. So I mean, it's like that. And they used to call me Tadchi and all kinds of things. So working with that, where the conversation is so, so open, like the girls themselves are like, Eda enkenda menstrual cup taramo. And I think that's so important. So we never really talked about it. So when perimenopause happened, I didn't know. As it is, I've got polycystic ovaries and thyroid, and nobody talks about all these things. And now, of course, it's the in thing.
I know.
To be polycystic and have thyroid and be perimenopausal or menopausal. Well, I've been the in thing for 30 years then. But honestly, did not know how to deal with it. And then the more you talk about it, the more you realize. And you get so angry because men don't understand it. Because they really don't. Because they just think that they have been, I don't know, like they've just been...
It's something that just popped up suddenly.
And they're deprived of a certain vicinity in their lives, or a certain part of their lives have been taken away. But actually it can be worked on. Perimenopause is real. Hot flushes are real. Menopause is when you do not have your period for 12 months. And then you have postmenopausal symptoms. So yes, it goes on and on and on. And I think sometimes it's important to give labels to these things because then we can focus about it. Okay. Right? Why do we have a birthday? I mean, I would celebrate you, Anne, every day. But sometimes I may forget for a second because I have other stuff.
Yeah.
So it's Anne's birthday means we have to focus on that. So that's why I think conversations are very important, and talking brings out revolutions. And even in my lifetime, if I don't get to see the results, I do see the results happening already with women and men as a community of human beings. I
Okay.
see people are more sensitive to this topic. But talking about this, I have to say, trying to find my own niche and trying to get over my sadness or depressions or pains or whatever it is with menopause, I think I have been a little selfish. And
Meaning?
and I'll tell you this, because while we are going through menopause and we are married, or we are with a man, or we're with another woman, or with whatever we want to be with, we are so focused on ourselves, we forget about how that person has been aging, or how that person
True.
has been coping. And I just feel that it was so selfish of me not to think that while I am going through these transitions, my spouse, my partner, my
Is also
lover is
aging.
going through something else. And it's not about sexual, it's about each person's body is aging, sometimes together, but you're so focused on, oh my God, I'm menopausal and perimenopausal. You stopped being sensitive because
Okay.
you feel you were deprived, and especially women who are in their 40s and 50s and all, they all like, suddenly they become like, we call them BTMs in Calcutta. That's called Benji turned mod. So
Okay.
they're all doing their last hurrah, and everyone's like, oh, I was so deprived, and I was a woman who couldn't do this, and also everybody wants to do this and focus on yourself. But honestly speaking, being a woman, the greatest quality about being a woman is that you're a nurturer. And I stopped being that because I was so consumed by this hormonal rubbish. It happens, it's been happening for centuries, it will happen even more. But if we have more conversations about it, it will be
Easy.
fabulous.
Okay.
So, yeah, that's for sure.
So, any professional value that you've imbibed from your mom, which is helping you currently?
Being authentic,
Okay.
being consistent, being persistent,
Okay.
and not trying to be like somebody else.
Okay.
Because you can't carry it on for very long. I mean, I would love to talk like Nigella Lawson, but how long can I do it? I can't, right? So being very honest, actually honest, more than honest, you have to be very authentic.
Okay.
You just have to know what you can do
True.
and what you can't do. Like I always say, it's like if you're given ingredients for sambar, you can't make a risotto from it. Though I do believe risotto and khichdi are pretty similar, but that's what it is. So you have to deal with what you have. And another thing that my amma always told me, and I find it so important, and I think it's just one of the best pieces of advice, is she said, more than knowing what you want, you must know what you don't want. And more than knowing what you
Okay.
can do, you must know what you can't do. Because the minute you know you can't do it, it just clears that many ingredients off the table, right? So I know I can't swim. I know I can't drive. I know I can't garden. And Vella Moichala Chedi will die there only. So embroider, do some crazy fancy things. So I know I can't do that. So move that out. Can I cook for 40 people? Yes. Can I stand up and talk and entertain people? Yes. Can I do my yoga and my exercise? Of course I can do it. Can I go out partying and come back home at 5? Yeah. But what I can't do is more important, to move out of the way. Because otherwise you
Okay.
keep trying and you're putting yourself up for failure.
Stresses you out.
Yeah. Stresses you out because suddenly you want to do a headstand. But you don't have it in you. So you keep trying and you're failing. And you're only getting depressed. So might as well do something you're really fabulous at and feel good about it. So do one thing in your day that makes you feel there's no one better than you. And then do one thing in the day which will make you realize you're just a speck in the universe. My amma always said that. She said, you're better than 10 people.
Okay.
Maybe. But there are 50,000 people better than you. So
Yeah.
it keeps you grounded. And radio is like that. How do you know how many people are listening to you?
True.
You just live on the
Idea
aspiration
that,
and the
yeah.
idea. Everyone's like, oh my God, that's Anjali. Oh my God, it's Anjali. There's not even one person listening. So that's very grounding.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, any memory being an RJ, any good memory?
So the most recent memory was I was on at that Kadwantra metro station, just near there. I'd gone to buy an Archie, to that shop Archie's, to buy a card.
Okay.
I still buy cards for Valentine's Day and my wedding anniversary and all of that. We believe in handwritten cards even now. And I was walking and I can hear somebody calling Anjali, Anjali, Anjali. Sometimes a bit too full of myself, so I keep hearing these things and honestly there's nobody calling. But this person kept running behind me. I just came and stopped like this. So I said, yeah, are you Anjali? Aren't you Anjali from Radio Mango? Yeah. My name is Thomas, ma'am, and I love your show. And I tune in every Saturday and I listen to it for all 6 hours. And he knew that my show has gone on from 3 hours to 5 hours to 6 hours. I was so taken aback, and he was just out. He's just doing his first year college.
Okay.
And that must have been like the best day of my life. And I feel like that whenever people say that or send me a message. When Lisha came over to see me with her husband at Radio Mango was another one. But in the old days, nobody really knew. We were not allowed to be seen and heard. I mean, heard, of course, but not seen. So if anybody used to come to our office and they said they want to listen to an RJ, see an RJ, it was not really allowed. So this Vinita was there and she was feeling really bad for this guy who had come, and I'm talking 50 kilos more of me, bad hair day, so I put oil, and I was wearing kannadi, so I just looked like one big huge tani matinga on toothpicks, and I was there, and this guy said, oh, enakku oru arjane kaananam. So Vinita said, Anjali ne kanda madiyo, English, pinne enakku kanda madi. So she called me out and I said, hi, how are you? Ayye idano Anjali. I'm like, what? So, സംസാരിക്കുമ്പോൾ ഞാൻ ഓർത്ത് ഭയങ്കര തിൻ ലേഡി ആയിരിക്കും, മുടി ഇങ്ങനെ പോയോണ്ടിരിക്കുക, ഹലോ കൊച്ചി പറയുമ്പോളേ അയ്യേ ഇതാണോ എനിക്കിനി കാണണ്ട. And he went off. But how much I laughed because you don't know when you're listening to somebody's voice.
Yeah, true, I know.
It's like when you read a book like Fountainhead, and you think of Howard Roark, or maybe for the now generation or whatever, people who have all read 50 Shades of Grey. You had a particular image of that guy. When it came on TV, I was like, oh God, he's too namby-pamby for me. That's not like a man. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We all have images.
Yeah,
so, but that image was very good for me. I mean, I laughed so much. Everybody in the office laughed. But those are memories I carry, which are fabulous.
So, ആൾക്കാരിടയ്ക്ക് ഒരു വിചാരമുണ്ട് that if you talk so much, you can be an RJ. And you actually talk a lot. Is that why you're an RJ?
I am not the only one talking. But it's a big misconception that if you talk a lot, you are to be an RJ. But honestly speaking, the most important thing about being an RJ is knowing when to shut up. Because nobody is listening to you for more than 55, 70 seconds. If you've got Amitabh Bachchan, maybe 2 minutes. Otherwise, they're changing the channel immediately. Okay. So the most important thing to know is to shut up.
Okay.
Not speak continuously.
So this is the biggest advice you can give the people who are watching this, maybe, I think.
I mean, if you really have the gift of the gab and you can talk a lot like I do, then maybe you should be on a chat show.
Okay.
Or you should be reading the news.
Okay.
Or you should be giving commentary. You cannot be a radio jockey with talking, because I do a 6-hour show. I'm not talking for 6 hours. Every hour, push comes to shove, I don't speak more than 7 minutes.
Okay.
But you think you're there for 7 hours and you're 6 hours and you're only talking. No, you're not talking.
So this is a myth.
Total myth.
Okay.
Thank you anyway for the compliment. No, but really, you must know when to shut up.
Yeah. So before you go,
I don't want to go. I'm having such a good time.
maybe one last question.
Tell me.
Any piece of advice for the people who want to aspire to be an RJ?
Okay, so now you have courses for RJs, right? I did not have a course. I just happened to be an RJ. I just became one. So a couple of things I believe when you are trying to be an RJ. Of course, you can go and attend your courses and you can be on social media and you can find out all the top 10 things that are happening. But the most important thing is to keep your ears and eyes open 24/7.
Okay.
And imbibe certain things and be able to create mind pictures because you've been there. And I think just being authentic to who you are and to be able to reach out to somebody's heart. Like I remember many years ago on Valentine's Day, I just said, I hope you're not lonely this Valentine's Day, but if you are, don't worry, I'm sending you a lot of love through the airwaves.
Okay.
And I got a message from this guy Milan who'd actually broken up with his girlfriend. And he said that voice was just healing. So yeah, just keep your ears and eyes open, be authentic, don't try to be like somebody else. And don't think about what the next person is doing, because that person has her own show.
Yeah. Going on,
when you are with me for 6 hours, you want Anjali to sound like Anjali, not like Oprah or anybody else who are much better than me. But you're coming to Anjali for something. So yeah, just be authentic and constantly be aware. So in case you need to go and do a show right now, you never must say, I'm not prepared.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's great. So thank you so much, Anjali,
Thank you,
for
my
coming
dear
over.
Anne. I've just had the loveliest time, and I must thank you. It's the first probably interview that I've ever done like this. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank
And
you,
all the
darling.
very best.
Thank you ever so much.